Today I want to talk with you about masculinity
Okay.
and the role of men in the world. We are in this unique time right now where, I'll just be honest, and I might get some hate mail for this, but if you went on television and said that you were a feminist, people would cheer that on. If I said I'm a masculinist, my career would be over. What are your thoughts on all this?
Oh. Okay. I feel really sorry for men these days.
Why is that?
Okay, I'm 60 years old. I was born in
not 60.
1958.
Okay.
Yeah. So I grew up in that post-war era where, yes, women were working in factories and building ammunition, and women were taking a bigger role in society, and we had the vote. But it was still very much that the woman was at home bringing up the children. She might have a part-time job, but the husband was the one who was out working and doing all that traditional male stuff. Now, we got the vote about 100 years ago-ish. In the last 100 years, we've expected men to go from the role they're genetically engineered to take on, which is the hunter-gatherer, provider, protector, etc.
Yeah.
We've expected them to go from that to still holding that role, because as women, and if women are going to be honest, and a lot of them aren't, but if they're going to be really honest, they still want men to hold that role. We still want you to protect us. But at the same time, we want you to be our girly best friend as well. So we want you to take on both roles. So what we expect of men these days is that you're going to be that big, manly guy that makes us feel safe, but you're also going to be able to listen to all of our problems, and when we're crying, listen to us and go, oh, never mind, and give us a hug, which doesn't come so naturally to guys.
No.
And I actually said to a friend recently, he said, what do I do? He said, my partner's really not happy and they've got a baby and it's all been going a bit pear-shaped. And I said, just hug her. He said, no, it can't be that simple. I said, trust me, it's that simple. Just give her
Just
a
hug
hug.
her.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I've got 6 girls. I've got 7 children, I've got 6 girls. So there's a constant stream of boyfriends entering and exiting my life. And I watch them and they don't know what to do. They don't know whether they should pull the chair out for the girls or whether they should open the door for them. Should they offer to pay for the meal or should they let them go Dutch? They really don't know what they're supposed to be anymore.
There's a reason for that, and we get corrected a lot of times by feminists. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong. I think there's a lot of bad things us men have done to women throughout the years that I'd be lying if I didn't acknowledge. And it's very, very real. And we have abused power, abused women in so many ways. And, you know, at the same time, if I go to hold the door for a woman and she gets offended, I don't know what to do with that. You know, I was trying to be a gentleman at that point. But, you know, the other thing is we were talking, actually filming this today, the camera person, she had her bags and I offered to take one to get over here to the bench. And we were asking before, would I have done that if she were a man? You know, I don't know. And so it's an interesting thing because I think us men want to be in that natural role, but sometimes get shamed or corrected by some people who feel we shouldn't do those things. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I've had 2 instances recently.
Recently?
Literally in the last couple of weeks. I got on a tube train, there was 1 seat. I wasn't running, but I started to walk towards it. I was shattered. I'd been in London all day and I was very tired, put it that way. And this young guy got in the door further down from me. He was about 20, and he ran for this chair and sat down. And next to him was a guy probably in his 40s. And he obviously wasn't very impressed by this. And he looked at me and he said, would you like my seat? And I said, thank you very much, I appreciate that. And I sat down, and I was really grateful because my feet were killing me. Then when I got to my stop, I stood up and I said, would you like your seat back? And before he could make a move, a girl about 18 had shot into it. So I said, I'm really sorry. Now I know he was making a point initially to the young guy next to him, which, you know, come on, really? But when he offered me his seat, he was kind of, is it okay if I offer you my seat, are you going to be,
Yeah.
you know? And I just said, no, I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.
Again, I'm going to take the feminist role actually here. For a moment.
Okay, go
I'll
on.
take
Yeah.
the feminist role. If you look at the workplace, that's what just came to mind. There's been a history of sexism in the
Yeah.
workplace here in the UK, here in the United States.
Yeah.
And men have held power for a while. A lot of times there's been sexual harassment on the job, the whole income gap.
Oh, yeah.
And so what women have been trying to do, again, I'm speaking as a Mike Veny feminist right here, is work really hard to decrease that gap.
Yeah.
Because they do deserve equal pay for being, you know, whatever
absolutely.
position a man
Yeah.
is. But again, where do you draw that line? It's a funky line.
Yeah, it is a funky line. But I think I think common sense has to come into play. Of course a woman should be paid the same if she's doing the same job as a man. I mean, I don't know why that's ever up for debate. It shouldn't be. Yes, men have, but that's been their role in society. You know, that's been our perception of what a male role should be. So it's not really men's fault. The sexual harassment, I mean, it was far worse when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, nowadays, guys don't even know whether to say hello or whether to flirt with you.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big fear, which is a whole other subject on its own. So there are things that are obvious that should be, you know, women should be able to be bosses of companies, and they are. You know, they are taking on those roles now, and that should be the case. But sometimes a woman is better suited to a role, and sometimes a man is better suited to a role. And I think where I have a real problem is with feminists who think that in order to be a feminist and to assert their power, they have to behave like a man. And I'm meeting more and more women who are trying to be masculine in order to fulfill the role they feel they have to fulfill in business to be taken seriously. And to me, it's far more empowering if men embrace their masculinity and utilize their natural skills, and women embrace their femininity and embrace their natural skills. And I'm good at business. I always have been. I'm a natural business person. That's just part of my character, though. That's got nothing to do with me being a woman or a man.
Yeah.
Some men aren't very good at business. Some women aren't very good at business. Some men are better at looking after babies than the women are.
That's true.
You know, we have to embrace all of these roles, but without trying to change sexes. You know, we shouldn't be wanting men to become women, and we shouldn't, as a woman, be wanting to become masculine and manlike in order to succeed. We have to recognise that there are huge differences between the sexes, and actually we need to celebrate those differences.
Celebrate them.
Rather-
How do we do that?
We have to recognise that women generally, I mean, all of this is a generalisation before anyone has a go at me.
Yes.
Right? This is a generalisation.
Generalization.
Of course, there are women who can work in construction and drive trains and all the rest of it, and that's what they want to do. That's fantastic. They have the opportunity these days. We're very lucky. There are men who want to be nannies and childminders, and that's fantastic as well.
Yeah.
But we have, whoa, I get so angry because we're genetically wired. It's tens of thousands of years of genetic wiring that have made us the way we are. Women have fantastic peripheral vision because we needed to keep an eye on the kids around the campfire and make sure a saber-tooth tiger isn't coming up. Men have much narrower vision because they needed that to hunt.
Right.
They needed to be able to focus on the prey. So we've evolved in a certain way. So there are certain roles that are better for one and better for the other. And I think we need to recognise that, and rather than fighting it, embrace it. And when we have people who want to take on the opposite role, celebrate that as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And celebrate everybody for what they are and who they want to be. And if a woman wants to be a stay-at-home mum, why can't she? Why is she berated by other women for not wanting to be this powerful go-getter in business?
Absolutely.
And it happens.
Yeah.
You know, it happens.
Yeah.
So it
Stay-at-home
happens
moms.
within the sexes as well.
Stay-at-home moms are the hardest workers out there. Trust
Absolutely.
me. They are the hardest workers. They get stuff done like nobody's business. But that being said, I'm going to, again, take the feminist perspective here. This is a very interesting conversation. Let's say I am a woman in the workplace and I have been traumatized by men.
In what way?
In what way? Maybe it was harassment.
Yeah.
Maybe it was intimidation.
Yeah.
Let's just take those two, and I want to do well in the workplace. I want to have my voice heard. How do I do that without coming off too manly?
And I guess this comes back down to basic personality. Some people are very good at handling things like that.
Yeah.
If it's a big company, you have an HR department that you
Yes.
can go to who will be able to sort that issue out and maybe move you to a different part of the company. Certainly have words with the guys. I mean, I'll tell you a story that
Sure.
absolutely horrified me. Two of my daughters used to work for a company that has about 20 pubs, they're gastropubs all over the country. And they have a big party every year in a tent, in a field.
Okay.
And at the start of this year's party, the owner of the business stood up and said, right, everybody, we talked about the company obviously, but at the end he said, and everybody listen, can I just reinforce that no means no? Now,
It's a little
why?
awkward
Yeah.
at the party.
How? Well, it means they've had issues at other parties.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a full-on drug and booze-fueled
Yeah.
affair. But I thought, are we really still at that stage? And I mean, we are. We were talking at the home the other day. 7 women in our house, and every single one of us has been raped.
Oh, jeez.
Every single one of us.
Sorry.
And we were all shocked because I didn't know that some of the girls had. They didn't know that I had. And this conversation just evolved. And I thought, that's horrific. Taking the female stance, not necessarily a feminist stance, but
Yeah.
a female stance now, that is absolutely horrendous. That shouldn't be the case. And if all 7 of us have experienced that, then, what actually is the percentage of women out there who've been through the same? We're talking about a huge number of women that we don't know about. So there are, it's far less likely the woman's going to sexually abuse or harass a man.
Yeah.
Although it happens
It
now
does
because
happen.
it's a way women are using that in the workplace now to try and assert their authority over men.
Yeah.
That's no more right than a man harassing a woman. So where does common sense kick back in?
Common sense.
You know?
What the heck is common sense?
I don't know, it's not very common anymore.
It's not very common. Let me ask you this: as a man, I'm sitting here, got to meet you today. Thank you so much again.
No,
for
thank you.
being here. What would you give me in terms of advice? Give me some advice, the way you see the world and men. I want Vikie's advice here on how to be healthier in my masculinity.
I believe men should embrace their masculinity and be who they are genetically programmed to be. And I think in modern society, men, when I was growing up, it was kind of accepted that as a kid at school, you'd get groped by the teachers, and that was okay. You wouldn't have dreamt of going to the headmaster about it. It was just sort of, well, it happens, and everyone would go, oh well. If I'd gone to the headmaster, it would have been, why are you causing trouble for that teacher?
Yeah.
Not, are you okay and how can we sort this? So there's been a big shift. But I think it's understanding your strengths as a man. I mean, you're an unusual man.
I'm an unusual man.
Yeah, you're
Tell me
rare.
how.
Well, you're rare because you're a man. You're a very masculine man.
Well,
But you're
thank you.
very comfortable
Thank you.
talking about your mental health.
Yeah.
And that's extremely rare. And we need more of that, a lot more of that.
It's hard for us guys, and one thing
Yeah.
you and I were talking about before, a lot of men, there's a lot of anger issues actually that come
Yeah.
out as power issues with
Yeah.
women. Go back to what we were just talking
Yeah.
about. And for a lot of men, anger is depression in disguise.
Yes.
And for years, I thought I had anger management issues. I had all these books on anger management, only to learn that it was really depression
Yeah.
that was manifesting as
Yeah.
anger. And that's really hard. And a lot of us don't know what to do with that anger. Actually, recently, this is a week ago, I bought a tennis racket.
Yay!
And I don't play tennis. The purpose of the tennis racket is to actually hit the mattress at home
Oh, yeah.
when I need to let out aggression,
Yeah.
because as a man, again, letting out aggression and anger in a healthy way, what is that? If I say, look, I want to just, punch walls or whatever, you know, people are like, whoa, he's dangerous. But we need to let that out, and that's really hard. And I guess women too. Sometimes we all need to let out stuff.
But I can relate to that because my son, who's autistic and has cerebral palsy, so, you know, his childhood's been tough because he admitted to me only recently that he's been in constant pain his entire life.
Oh, wow.
And he's such a little trooper. He's always said, no, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then finally he said, Mum, I have always been in pain. You know, he's right side hemiplegic, so it affects his right side more than his left.
Yeah.
And when he was younger, he had enormous anger issues that got to the point where he was throwing knives and scissors at his sisters. And I thought, this is now dangerous. But he's learned that, you know, when he's really frustrated, he has to do something physical to get rid of that frustration. Otherwise, he will do something that potentially could hurt someone. And he's much better now at managing that anger. But he does suffer from depression. And I think his depression does come out as that anger. So I might tell him about the tennis racket and get him a tennis racket.
The tennis racket. And the cool thing is when it hits the bed, it doesn't make much of a sound, you know?
No, but it must be quite a satisfying thwack.
Yes, it is. And you could feel it. And, and you know, for me, I was doing it because I'll actually confess this for the first time on video. I've been struggling to cry.
Really?
I want to be able to cry. And this is not even a manly thing at this point. This is just me and myself. Driving my truck. I want to be able to cry.
Where do you think it stems from, though?
Well, one of my good friends, Wendy, she reminded me recently, she said, Mike, you've practiced contracting your anti-crying muscles for a long time.
Yeah.
Holding it together, trying to keep it together. And a lot of it's, when I say keep it together, is keep control over myself, because when you cry, you just lose control for that moment, and it's a full surrender. Yeah. And so I have been trying desperately so hard my whole life to just hold it together or grip on it in my head that my body's tight and I can't just let myself cry. But funny thing, so I was using the tennis racket in a hotel room, hoping that, you know, nobody was going to call the front desk, and not going to say which hotel, and I ended up having to stop because tears started coming down my eyes, and I went to sleep and had a really, really solid sleep.
Yeah.
Still woke up a little sad, but it really released something for me. So again, we as men don't do that, and one of my goals this year actually is emotional sobriety. And what that is for me is showing up for my emotions, the good ones and the bad ones. Yeah. And that's tough.
Yeah,
it is tough. Because they're ugly, they're uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah. I hate crying, but I was brought up by a military father. You know, I dislocated my knee and I was crying and I was in pain, and my mum pulled my trousers down. I was 9. My kneecap was round there. And
ouch.
He looked at me and he said, come on, he said, it doesn't hurt that much. And I went, so I don't like to cry. I'm learning to cry.
You're learning to cry too.
Yeah,
okay, this is why we're here today.
Yeah, because as a child, I wasn't allowed to cry. And then when Paul died, and I can't explain what life was like, but it was 24/7 just firefighting and trying to solve problems. And I say in the film, it kind of suited me because it meant I didn't have to focus on my emotions. And then as the kids have got older and I've had more time to think, it's kind of, I don't really know if I want to do this. So I'm just about to start CFT, which is compassion-focused therapy, which I think I need because I think it will allow me to get in touch with the emotions that I don't really want to have anything to do with. You know, I'd rather shove that over there and not think about it. But actually I need to, because I need to get beyond this. I'm not allowed to cry. And of course in Britain we have this British stiff upper lip, you know. Don't you know you're not allowed to cry and you're not allowed to show any emotion? And we're absolute so-and-sos for it, we really are.
Wow.
Especially the older generations.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe the younger ones are starting to come through. But one of the girls' boyfriends said the other day, I don't cry.
Yeah.
I said, you need to cry. You know, actually there's a hormonal reason why we cry. We're releasing hormones that are actually making us sad. So crying is releasing those hormones so that we can feel better.
Oh, I want to release those hormones. I need to.
Well, did you know they did an experiment? They got someone to cut an onion up and tested the tears, and then made them watch a sad film and tested the tears.
Great way to start crying. Just
no, it's not real, is it? But the tears are different. The tears from the chemical in the onion create different tears to the tears you cry when you're unhappy or you're emotional. And you know, it's scientifically proven that we actually need to cry because we need to get rid of these emotions that are building up, and it helps us. And I'm becoming a great advocate of crying, and I'm trying to cry more. It's so ridiculous.
It's a great conversation.